I have just had my third conversation with Izzy, and we go into books and podcasts quite a lot. We start off in parenting and anime and responsibility. And then we go into Esther Perel, Mating in Captivity, a little bit. We talk about Jocko Willink, whose book, Extreme Ownership, I think, Izzy raves about, so I'll be getting a copy of that one. I really speak about the importance of me making sure that I am resourced enough to be out in the world, really, to deal with what comes, instead of abdicating my ownership of myself and my experience of me by saying, you are triggering me and hence you need to shut up because I can't deal with this. Yeah. So dive into this potentially triggering episode, but I hope not. And if it is, I hope that you deal with it because that's kind of what ownership is about. And that's where we end up in how freeing it is to be able to deal with the world, regardless of what feelings and emotions pop up. So, have fun. I sure had. Yeah.
How are you in this beautiful new year?
I am great. And today is the first day that it's been almost around zero, but it's a crisp, sunny, not a cloud in the sky day. So I went for a walk before this
That's
conversation.
nice.
Yeah,
That's
to
nice.
get
I
a
went
little
for
bit
a
of
run.
sun. You
Yes,
went
that's
for a
good.
run. Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
So,
I actually started now doing morning runs. So because every gym here is closed right now due to COVID, obviously. So and we think that it will go for longer than they say.
yeah.
They say till 14th of January, but I think it will go for longer. So I rather get into a habit of running because
Yeah.
yeah, exercising at home, stretches, and go for a run.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually finished watching something yesterday that is way off my radar. So
What was it?
my youngest, um, he's 17 and he's into anime, like
Mm-hmm.
mm, like cartoon manga, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, and I've been, wondering, I've been asking him, what's the thing? What is it that you
Mhm.
like about it? And
Yeah.
is there any particular that you really like? And so he told me before Christmas, he said, yeah, there's a show called Run with the Wind that I
Mm.
really like. And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, what about it do you like? And, couldn't get any good answer out of
Yeah,
him.
yeah, yeah.
70, just having him say the
Everything.
show, that was enough. Precisely. I like everything about it. Okay, so and then he actually started asking me. It was probably maybe even the end of November he told me this. He's like, "Have you watched it yet?" And it's like, "No, I haven't." And then I was like, "Where do I watch it? How do I
Mm-hmm.
Do you know about Crunchyroll?"
No.
No. Well, if you were into anime, you would know about Crunchyroll. So Crunchyroll is like kind of a Netflix but for anime.
Mm-hmm.
Um so it was on there and it was 23 episodes,
Oh
this
my
Run with the
gosh.
Wind. And I was like, okay. And so I started to watch it, the first episode, and every 3 minutes there's a 2 minute break for commercials. And
Oh
I just
yeah.
went, I cannot stand this.
Yes.
And he said, you can get a free a 1 month or half a month free trial as a
Yeah.
premium if you want to, and then you don't have the commercials. So I did that because he was asking, have you watched it yet?
Yeah,
Have you?
yeah,
And it's
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
no, I haven't. And I felt like a
And
really
you feel
bad mom.
guilty?
Yes. And so after Christmas, I registered on a premium account on
Yes.
Crunchyroll, um, and watched a couple of episodes. And it's like, it's like it's kind of stereotypical. There's these Japanese young
Yeah.
guys and
Yeah.
and only in Japanese. So I have to
Oh,
watch the subtitles because I can't just
yes.
hear it,
Yeah,
right? And
yeah.
I'm usually darning socks or doing sashiko
Yes, gotcha.
embroidering or something. So I told him I watched a couple of episodes. He's like, what do you think? It was like, well. And then it was, I think over the weekend, I decided that no, I'm gonna watch this.
Mhm.
So I finished watching it yesterday, all 23
Oh my
episodes.
gosh.
I skipped one or two because there were little like summaries and there were a
Yeah,
couple
yeah, yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
so maybe I skipped two or three. But I got it.
Okay.
Or
How did
rather,
you like it? Like how what was
precisely. That was the thing. I think I get what draws my son to the
and what was
series.
it?
It's a series about community, about coming together. Because it's
Ah.
about 10 guys that live in a house, and one of them has the dream to get these 10 guys to do a run, a long
Mhm.
college run, because they're college
Mhm.
student, all of them. And it is about coming together, starting to train,
Mhm.
qualifying for the qualifier for the
Okay.
race, and these steps. And it's about 10 characters, different attitudes. There's a couple who just
Mhm.
love running and are really 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 fucking good at it, and then
Yeah.
there's the manga lover who doesn't do anything but read
Mhm.
manga series,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
he doesn't have any stamina at all. He's like
To run, yeah.
to run, and he's just so it is about coming together as a team and
Mhm.
what you do as a team. And I
Yeah.
think that is what draws my son to it. And I really enjoyed it.
Mhm.
Because I was
Mhm.
thinking, when I'd watched like 5, 6 episodes, like I've gotten it now. Now I've shown my son enough that I'm interested in what he thinks,
Yeah. But
But
it's
then
about
it's like,
understanding a little bit more than just,
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
like, did I read somewhere this? Or it came up in conversation that often we just watch things or we look at things, but we actually don't see those things. Like, like we are absent. We see something,
yeah.
but we do not really try to
Kind of
find the
surface
message.
level.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Because,
So yeah, and like as you say, like first few episodes you would say to your son, yeah, watch it, but I don't get it. But now you try to get it, try to
yeah.
understand, try to see his perspective a little bit, why it's something that interests him. And it's actually very interesting that you got into this deeper meaning of this
Yes.
this manga series about the community. It's really really cool.
And I mean, that's what I picked up from it, but knowing my son, you
Mm.
know, I can kind of see that, okay, this thing that actually fits with
Yeah,
the person that he has grown into becoming. I can kind
yeah,
of link it
yeah,
to traits of his, experiences of his, wishes and
yeah,
longings of his that
yeah,
has popped
yeah,
up, throughout the years. So,
yeah.
um, there's one thing about him that I really appreciate, and that is that he has always been very, very good at surrounding himself with mostly boys, but they have always been very, very caring towards each other. If
That's
they
really
haven't
good.
seen each other for a week, it's like hugs.
That's
when they
really good.
were, even when they were like starting to get into that, oh no, that can be really awkward,
Yeah.
they would do that. So there's a softness to
Mm,
him in that way that I pick up on in this
yeah.
Run with the Wind anime series.
Because, like, I see it in jiu-jitsu community. I see it with my friends who have
Mm,
kids, because I don't have kids, so it's a little bit hard for me to speak for myself in this regard. But, and I guess from my experience, it's in Poland we have this saying, I'm going to say it in Polish and then try to
mm,
somehow translate. So it's z kim się zadajesz, takim się stajesz, which means depending who you stay with, you surround yourself with, you become this sort of person.
yeah.
And I see that, like, for example, in jiu-jitsu community, we have a lot of young people there. And because they are with this other older guys and women, and it kind of shapes them. I see their behavior not being so rough, let's say, as majority of teenagers that I see on the streets. Like, they are a little bit different, in my opinion. Yes, from my perspective, I obviously don't know how they are at home and what they're going through, but from this little part of their
Yeah,
life,
what you
when they
see.
attend.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I also have a few friends and they have kids, and sometimes I am just shocked, like, with their behavior, like, I I and I can imagine that it's very hard to be a parent. Like, that's beyond the way of, like, beyond my thinking. I can only imagine that. And as I said, I don't have kids, so I really cannot uh, relate to this, like, 100%. But sometimes I'm just terrified of this, what those kids absorb, what they learn from, and, like, how everything is shaping them. I even recently I'm reading a book. It's already long time written. It's from Esther Perel,
Mhm.
Mating in Captivity.
Yeah, it's a good
And
one.
yeah, it's fantastic. And she says that depending how we were shaped in our young years when we were kids, how we were shaped by our parents and how their love looked and how we were loved, this how, like, it shapes our future way of loving other people and loving ourselves. So it's a lot of information there, but it's so interesting. I just find it very fascinating. And though I knew that, but it kind of, I think it's nice to read it somewhere and having, like, a confirmation of something like this.
Mm.
Because, I because I was raised in Poland. My parents, like, they are still together, and on a certain level they do love each other. Like, I wouldn't I don't perceive it as like a couple love, but more as a friendship. But I guess it is what it is, like, they were raised differently, and having certain image of their understanding of the relationship shaped me to the person that I am now. And I had a lot of, like, problems with jealousy, and it took a lot of time for me to work on it. Like, I would often fall into, like, thinking, well, I can do everything by myself. I don't need this other person. Like, it's good to think that someone is independent, but I think then this may create some struggles within the relationship, because then we don't have this urge of communicating, of, like, trying to figure out things. And now when I keep on seeing everyone, like, I will divorce, like, you know, like, I think people don't also put enough effort in this one relationship that they get into. And, like, we don't remember that it's a ongoing work on the relationship. And, that way I, like, when you say about your son that you see the community that he has, and it's really nice to hear that it's a community of people with some values, like that they are caring to each other or for each other. But I think he also in some way learned from you, like to surround himself with the community of people who care about other people.
Mm. And I mean, I would say this is probably the thing that is the one of the hardest of being a parent. It is this both like realization that I really help shape my kids
Mm,
for better or for worse,
mm,
you know, because the good in me, excellent. The bad in me, but here's is like, oh no, what have I done? Right. So
mhm,
there's a quite a big degree of I don't know, almost surrendering to the fact that I've done the best that I can. In
mm.
any moment, I believe, and I will not let this belief go. I believe we do the best we can, even if the best I can is shit.
Yeah,
Well,
precisely.
it's still
Yes.
because if I could do better in the moment, I would do better in the
Exactly.
moment.
Exactly.
So I try not to beat myself up over the parent that I was, because the parent that I
Mm,
was the best parent that I could be
yeah, yeah.
um, back then. But do I do think that those it's like those under the surface undercurrents
Mhm.
of who I am as a
Yeah.
person, they are so much more influential than
Mhm.
maybe we perceive them to be or even want
Yeah,
them to be.
yeah.
Um so yeah.
Yeah, because like if I think about my parents, like I I think they did the best job they could do, and I think they did a great job taking into consideration the way they were raised, the environment, generally surrounding the people who like the environment they were growing up in. And I don't mean only their parents but also their friends, the community, the country that we grow up in. They did tremendously well, like they did a fantastic job, and they also gave us a lot of freedom in different areas, like certain things, like talking about intimacy, talking about sex, having sex with another person. Those weren't the things that we would talk about. We wouldn't discuss it, and it wasn't usual to do so in my country. I mean, it's still topic of taboo. uh, but there are many other aspects that they cherished, and they allow us to grow within those aspects, within those, let's say, boundaries. Yes.
Mm.
And I mean boundaries in a good way in this
Yes.
regard. Um, and I think I remember like one time we had a family meeting. It was ages ago. We had a family meeting. There were my parents and my aunt and my cousin. And my cousin, she says, it's like, yeah, I would like if I could live my life again, I would change this, that, and this, like a lot of things she named. And I'm thinking, like, I kind of, it was interesting to me, the question and the way how she approached it, because I was sitting there and thinking, it's like, I wouldn't change a thing.
Mhm.
And my mom sometimes says, "I wish I could give you more things when you were growing up. I wish I could buy you more things. I wish I don't know, I could help you more." And I said to her, "No, I had everything that I needed." And we can always think that, oh, we could have more, or our parents could give us more. But they did the best they could at that specific time. As you said yourself, like there are so many different factors to consider. And the other thing is that I really am happy with what I got from my parents, how they raised me, and yeah, and now at that point I have some of my own battles to pick up and to figure that out. but at least I can see it, that I have some battles that I have to figure out, you know? Because maybe if I would be raised differently, I may have not seen that.
And it's interesting to hear you say this, and it makes me very, very, very happy to hear you say this
Mhm.
because it's like regret or wishing that things were something than other than what they were. It's like, what's really the point then?
Yeah,
Where does that
yeah,
energy take you? Sure, you can look at it and you can kind of maybe, theoretically think that, okay, if my parent hadn't gotten divorced, then maybe this, that, and the other thing. But everything that's happened to me has shaped me into who I
yeah,
am today. So it's like
yeah,
and I like who I am,
yeah,
you know?
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but but it's also I don't know, there's something interesting about this. Everything that has happened to me has shaped me into who I am.
Mm,
But I had a friend who said the other day, or I read something he'd written the other day saying, well, maybe that's not true. Maybe it is what you see ahead of you that shapes
mm,
who you are. And I just went,
yeah.
oh, that's a piece of tankesbia. Because he was like, you can look ahead and you can, oh, that holiday I will take, or that party
Mm,
I'm going to,
mm,
or that book that I'm going to read, or that run I'm going to take tomorrow, and,
yeah.
and, and sort of be shaped by the, the feeling that you will be having or that you want to be having
Mm.
as you do that. And that's just, oh,
Yes,
that's an
it's
interesting way.
actually our choice. I was just thinking now when we talked about those things. Like, it's our choices also. Like, we make how we decide to look to our now and our future, like how we want to perceive it. Because I think we always have a choice, and it's hard. It's sometimes really, really hard. But I think we need to try to look through the things from more promising perspective, you know, then keep on beating yourself down. Because if you have done something, you cannot change it. You cannot change the past. Yes, it already happened. Yes, you're now in this current situation and you can influence how you behave, how you act on the things. This is something you have an influence on. You have an impact on this. It's your behavior. But you cannot influence the behavior of other people. You cannot really um, decide what will happen for you in the future, because there are so many factors to happen. But you can influence how you react to those things. And now I was thinking, and I that was just a random thought right now about what we said, that, well, what our like, we don't have regrets about the past. Yes, we don't have regrets about, like, how we were growing up, or like, or at least I don't have. Should say for myself, I don't have. But I think it's also, mm, it was my choice how I chosen to use that experience. I chosen to not beat myself down because I didn't have this little thing. No, I decided that, okay, it wasn't all the time, sunshine, and I don't know, we could do everything whatever we wanted. No, but all those things, I find them as an experience I use them as an experience for me to take, to look at it. I was like, okay, and I can choose what I will do with that. So it's our choice. It's how we decide to what we decide to do with those things that were given us in the past. And of course, maybe there weren't, like, a tremendous amount of amazing things, and we didn't have amazing life in the past, but we had a life. And it's really up to us what we're going to do with that.
And
Because yeah,
I think one of the things that makes people kind of putting themselves in victim mode or staying in
Mm,
victim mode is not really oh, this happened in my past. My parents divorced,
mm,
you know? But rather, if you use it as an excuse, my parents divorce, hence I am incapable of
mm,
being in a
mm.
long-term love relationship because my
But
parents
do you
divorced.
do you
When you
think that
use it
people?
I know people use that as an excuse. Not necessarily that,
Yeah, this is
perhaps.
what I don't say like like I don't have enough knowledge to kind of debate the topic, psychological topic of that specific
Yes.
situation. Yeah, but I just sometimes I wonder if we use those past things as an excuse for something for us,
Yes.
like, oh, I cannot do that because of
Yes.
blah blah blah
Yes.
in the
It's
past.
I think that is very common.
Mm,
You know, I was beaten by my parent, and hence that is why I beat my children.
yeah, that's like
Okay. But, there are people who were beaten by their parents who don't beat their children.
yeah, because they
It's
don't want them to experience the same would.
precisely
Yeah,
right. So
yeah.
again, I think that is when my friend wrote about what if what everything that happened actually isn't shaping who you are, it is what's
Mm,
going on in the future. I think what he's pointing to is when you use it as an excuse,
mm,
when you use it as a crutch in a way
mm,
to get out of something. I can't do that because of
yeah,
this.
yeah.
I can't be that because of that. Um,
We're trying to we we often try to blame someone else or something else for our things that didn't work out for us, or or are not working out for us. And it's about taking that freaking responsibility for the things you do, you say, you think. And we are not perfect, and we're going to make a lot of mistakes. We're going to say a lot of things that we regret. But the thing is just to take those things, to reflect on those things that we did, and just trying to do better in the future. I Some time ago, it was before I did actually alt MBA. I was reading a book of a guy who spent many years in military and then used that experience to run his business and to help other businesses to grow. And his name is Jocko Willing. And yeah, and I'm generally like I like the things about like army, and like I'm kind of
mhm,
interested by this. And I said in the past that I guess if not problems with my eyes, because yeah, and not the past issues with epilepsy, because in the past I had it, I probably would go to army, like I would try that.
mhm.
I would, I really would like that. I like the intense physical life that is there. And I think I like the fact that they need to face a lot of fear, a lot of struggles, and sometimes some of them they come out even stronger from those experiences. He also has a podcast, and he did some interviews with different people, but one of them was a woman who during war she actually lost, I think, her leg and half of her face, and she was lucky enough that they were able to
Construct.
model
Mhm.
restruct thanks
Yes.
her face. But the leg, she lost the leg. But this woman is doing the things that I would never imagine myself doing, so many things at the same time. And some of them are extreme physical things, like climbing Mount Everest, or like, wow. And I know that it's everyone cannot be like this, and that like this woman or Jocko Willing himself, there are maybe some specific examples that manage to take that experience and shift it into their benefit. To that, just I think they decide to not look to the dark side as like, well, I still have life in front of me, and I can make it
Or at
miserable,
least
or
not
I can,
stay in the dark side.
yeah, don't stay, yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Mm.
Exactly. You have a choice. You will sit
Yes.
down, cry every day and make it miserable,
Mm.
or you move ahead. And you know, like so about Joko, he in his book he talks a lot about taking that responsibility for the things that we do. You know, like we really sometimes we need to detach from, like he says, our emotions, our feelings, and it's not to be like a robot, but to be a human being still, because emotions are a big part of us, and this is what makes us more human. But you sometimes need to have those emotions in check. Like you need to have control over your emotions. Your emotions cannot have control over you. And like this, you will be able to see things from different perspective. You know, to see maybe bigger picture. And as I'm like, for me, his book, I don't extreme ownership. That was the book. For me, this book was one of the most amazing things when it comes to my life management, my like work management. Like that was like this book was really working for me. Because a lot of those books about time management or management in general, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm rolling my eyes. But yeah, but this book really worked for me. He's really into the point, and his podcast is great too. I really like to listen to that. And I like when I was going through the burnout, I did went to the dark side. You know, like I at that time I feel like I was choosing more of the dark side than trying to be on a different on the to look to the things from different better perspective. But somehow at some point everything started shifting for me. Like I think I was strong enough to actually keep on trying to look to this brighter side, let's call it, yes, to choose things that actually will make me feel better. And if I make a mistake, I don't beat myself for that mistake. Or if I have like, because sometimes I would like overthink things, and I would go like, it's like, okay, but like, in my brain, I think I have a very creative brain because the scenarios that my brain came up with were amazing. Like, you could probably write a film based on those scenarios. And you know, I would just most of the time those would be really negative scenarios.
Mm.
And I would like downward spiral, keep on finding all these negative scenarios, and my brain would be eaten by this. My
Mm.
my self-esteem, my
Mm.
well-being would be eaten by those dark thoughts. And you know, like at some point I was like, no, I really need to fight those things. And I think I do have like a fighting character. I do all the time the fight sports. I did boxing in the past, now martial arts like
Mm.
jujitsu. This is all where you have to really struggle through the things. You have to push through things that you think you cannot do it. Keep going, keep trying, and change something if you think that this doesn't work, and still keep trying. You know. And I was like trying meditation. I was trying, I don't know, I read some books. I tried running. I tried different form of exercise just to find this one or few that makes me feel like myself. That like I'm not a person who would sit and meditate a lot. Like for me, going for a run is a form of meditation.
Mm.
For me, going to doing jujitsu and doing the rolls is a form of meditation. It's like a puzzle that I'm trying to figure out. So for me, just trying to sit on the ground and keep meditating for hours didn't really work that well. But I still found a form that suits me that I will do. It's short. It's a little bit different, but it helps me. It helps me to shift into that better perspective, let's say, like to push away a little bit those dark ways of perceiving the reality and perceiving the things that have happened to me and that may come toward me. So yeah, I think it's just it's a lot in our control. It's just we need to be brave enough to do that step to actually freaking do it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
To own it. So
To own
right.
it,
And it's
precisely.
so interesting. The friend that I was speaking about, Johan, who had written about, you're
Mhm.
shaped by your thoughts
Mhm.
about the future. He's a big fan of Jocko Willink. And
Mm.
I've never really, it's like I've heard it and thought, oh, well. And then somebody on Twitter wrote that the best Tim Ferriss episode ever on his
Mm.
podcast was a 2015 interview with Jocko Willink. So
Mm.
that got me curious. I was like, okay, I'll
Mm.
find that one. And I listened to it um, and was quite amazed
Mm.
because, I hadn't even looked at this man before. He really looks like a military jock. He's
She
like
does.
big, bulky. He's like a gorilla.
Bold. Yeah, 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 like a
It's like
girl.
he's really like a gorilla. So he's like, and I just went, oh my god, I'm gonna hate this because there's a type of American maleness. Let's
Mhm.
put it that way.
Mhm.
That is
Yes.
apparent in quite a lot of prominent podcasts, etc. That I just can't stand. It's like whoa,
Yes.
whoa, whoa, and it's just
Yes.
broing and it's like, oh, thank you, but no, thank you. I can't stand it. So I was thinking, oh my God, this is going to be 2, 3 hours of this. And it wasn't.
Mm.
It was quite eye opening to hear this brute of a man, a
Yes.
physical brute of a man, be so open, be
Mm.
so reflective. Tim has his question. He asks a question.
Yeah.
And instead of Yoko just answering because this is what you're supposed to, he actually took it in and
Yeah.
sat with it and was silent for half a minute before coming up with thoughts rather than here's
Yeah.
my answer. So he's
Yeah.
like this visible image of him and what I've heard of him, because a lot of what people say about him is how amazing he is at how his physical prowess and,
He's
and
very
his
physic. Yeah.
fighting spirit and all of those, like, you know, s- superlative words of how amazing he is and just showing something completely different. So
Yes.
I haven't listened to his podcast, but I will.
Mm. Yeah,
Um,
I will try to find the one that he did with this woman who was in army. She lost her leg. I
yeah,
will try to
do.
look for that.
Yeah.
I will get you this one. I really recommend Extreme Ownership, the book he wrote, because it, the chapters are divided in the way that first he talks about his military experience, the experience from war, and then whatever lesson was in there, he translates this to running a business or managing yourself in general. And it's really very interesting. The parts about him talking about the war and what was happening there, that was really, really well written and very interesting. Like a little bit of an eye opener for what is happening in there
Mm,
because we know it's horrible, but that's it.
mm,
Like we say it's horrible, it's bad, people are
mm,
dying,
mm,
but it's just terrifying. It's terrifying how it is. And so in some of his older actually podcasts, I came across one of them recently. He reads books, and sometimes he reads books from people who also were in the war, and the descriptions are just so scary. And together with his the person, the like an admin person or someone who takes care about the sound, they have conversations and they talk about those books, about the things that happened during war. It's really, really good podcast. This and but it's intense. It's sometimes it's very, very intense, because it's a lot to take to keep listening about
mm,
all this brutal and horrible things that
horrible.
happen
Yeah.
to people. Um, but also Tim Ferriss, like I love his podcasts. I really can like keep like it's one of my favorite podcasts that I listen to. And usually the most interesting people come from like I find them through his podcast. So yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was listening to one of the recent Tim Ferriss podcasts that I've been mentioning and writing about
Mm.
and speaking about in these conversations with people too is the one he had with Diana Chapman in the
Mm.
fall.
I haven't listened to this one.
Listen to this one.
Okay.
It
Okay.
is really, really good. But what struck me then was because I don't, I appreciate Tim Ferriss, but I don't read, I haven't subscribed to his podcast. It's not as if I listen to every episode.
Mm.
I find an episode here and there,
Mm-hmm.
and can kind of appreciate a lot of things that he does, but I don't regularly. I'm
Mm.
not a Tim Ferriss fan in that way.
Mm.
But it's been interesting to listen to because I've listened to podcasts for 10, 12 years or something. So listening to him and picking up on how he is evolving as a
Yeah.
podcast host, because he really, really is. He's gotten to be
Mm.
quite good.
Mm.
And the episode with Diana is is one of those where he's so willing to step into it. He's so willing
Mm.
to be there as a
Mm.
person rather than here I am, Tim Ferriss, the podcast
Yeah.
host of one of the most
Mm.
popular podcasts around. It's
Yeah.
like, actually, no, here I am. I'm Tim Ferriss, the person
Mm.
with these
Precisely.
fear, these hang ups, these beliefs. So I appreciate that. And I can, having listened to him for many years, even though not everything, I
Mm.
can hear how he's growing
Yeah. Yeah.
because I think he is showing more and more of him
Yes. Yes. And
rather
he does
than,
it. Mm.
just sort of turning more and more professional. It's like, well, he is by being more himself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
I think, the more you have the conversation with different people, the more you learn by yourself. Like you discover different things, you just dive into different topics, and sometimes you may know nothing about certain things. And like if you're a podcast host, it doesn't mean that you will know every single thing. No, and he shows that. Look, I don't know. Keep thinking about this and that all the time for a very long time. I talk to my friends about this, and he puts his experience there on the line. Sometimes I like how he how he says sometimes that well, this episode is becoming my personal therapy. So you know
yeah, precisely. Because I think
yeah.
partly they are, and the Diana Chapman episode most definitely is.
Okay, I will check this one
Um,
definitely.
yeah, I think you will. I think you would like that also from an intimacy
Good. Okay,
standpoint.
I will check this. I don't know. Maybe I need to check because I have added one of the. I'll check because maybe I have added this to my listening list. But
Yeah.
I tend to shift like between like Joko podcast, Tim Ferriss podcast. Um, I Peterson. I also listen to some of his podcast or his daughter,
Mm,
Michaela Peterson. But Jordan's, I like his podcast more because he really digs into a topic, but they are very long and very heavy
mm,
for me to digest because there is so much information. The guy is super duper smart, but there's so much information that sometimes it's really hard to digest. And those podcasts, usually his podcasts are like 2 hours long, so yeah,
yeah,
a lot to take
yeah,
in.
yeah. There's one episode. I don't listen to Jordan B. Peterson's podcast
Mm.
generally either, but there's one episode, or if it's two, where he speaks to a man from, I don't know, uh, Mali? No, well, some
Yes.
African country who was then in in Germany as a student, and then
Yes.
was caught by the U.S.
Yeah.
and put in Guantanamo and
Yes.
whatnot, like
Yes.
jailed for 10 years.
I know which
That
one.
show,
I
shit.
have it in my. I will just
Yes,
find it very quickly.
because that man
Yeah.
is just amazing. That is like listening to this African man speaking is
Yes.
he's a mensch.
Yes. It's season 4, episode 49. Enhanced interrogation techniques. Mohammed Audislai. I think it's like, yeah. And
Yes.
I know that Michaela, his daughter, she also did an episode with this guy. I think
Oh,
first she did an episode with him, and then Jordan did another one. But yeah,
yeah.
he is
Yeah.
just, yeah.
Because that one is also it's long,
Mm-hmm.
and I think I listened to it in two or three. Like, I
Yeah.
could. It's like I couldn't.
Yes,
You have to
precisely.
break and give yourself room to breathe
Mm,
because what this man shares is just
yeah,
horrifying in many
yeah.
ways and so extremely hopeful in other ways because
Mm,
he has a love for man that just blows my mind.
yes,
Talk about not
yes,
like going down the path of regrets and just it happened.
exactly. I think this podcast is actually one of the ones that would is showing that, well, the bad things that has happened, bad things that have happened to him in the past, and the way he chooses to treat those things. It's it's really really interesting.
Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah.
mm,
And I think I mean this is one of the things that I like about conversations, about podcasts, about books, about just relationships, really. It is this aspect of hearing somebody else share,
mm,
you know, sharing from their internal world in a way
yeah.
that makes me go, huh, I have aspects of this. I can relate to this. Other things are so far away from anything I've ever experienced, either actually experienced or felt. It's like, but
Mm,
it widens my understanding of what it is to be human
yes,
in a way.
yes.
And I think that's why I mean I read a lot.
Mm,
Um, but I love biographies.
mm,
I love historical fiction, either based in real events but
mm,
fictionalized or
mm.
pure fiction. But because I kind of get more and more nuanced in my understanding of what it is to be human. Um, and
Exactly.
I love that.
Because, you as a one person, you cannot experience everything in your
Mm,
life. And by listening to those different podcasts, by reading different books, we learn so much. I even recently was thinking, like, if I was considering if I want to go, like, to do 5 years of study, like, to learn
mm,
something more. But I was like, I rather take all the books that they have listed there and plus many other ones that I will find on the way and read through those books than just go to a class and keep sitting there. It's like, I believe, yes, those people have a lot of things to say and sometimes they will be very smart things. I'd rather just read those books, listen to podcasts from the people that I admire and I respect their opinion or the way how they think about the world or how they perceive it. So, yeah, it's, it's interesting.
and one of the things that I've been doing um, throughout last year, and it will continue a couple of times this year, I've been reading Women Who Run with the Wolves by Clarissa Pinkola Estes and
Mhm.
having a book circle on each chapter,
Mhm.
me and my friend David, and just really digging into each chapter has been
Mhm.
amazing. And it is a book where each chapter easily warrants an hour or two of conversation and discussion and
Mhm.
going
Uh,
deep.
yeah, I have. I think I added that book to actually to the list of the books that I want to read, and it was I think last year when I added it, and somehow like I forgot about this, but now you say about it,
Yeah,
so.
yeah. It's really a good one. And me and David, we're on chapter 13 now. It's 16 chapters, but then the notes
Mm,
section is
mm,
equally
mm,
rich. So maybe
mm,
it'll be another one. And then I'm thinking that I want to continue going into depth in this particular book that way. So I will be
mhm.
starting a new book circle with people who want to join that,
Okay, okay.
because I am not done with this book. But
Mm,
also in my creative community, we have a book club, and the conversations around these books are just so. I love reading books with the right combination of people going
mm,
into a book, kind of kneading it and picking it
yeah,
apart a little bit and kind of shining a light on things because somebody says something and just blows my mind because I
yeah.
didn't pick up on that at all. And especially my creative community, the quality of conversation around our books that we've read in the book club are
Yeah,
just mind blowing. It is
yeah.
mind blowing. And we, so finding those people, getting into that type of constellation where, like you say, you can read a book or listen to a podcast or something and then
And have a
have a
conversation.
conversation around it. I would say
It's
quality
nurturing.
wise, it
Mm?
is really, really nurturing. And yes, likely it will broaden your view and understanding of the world in ways that unfortunately I think a lot of like university courses doesn't.
Yeah,
It
this is the
should
thing.
and it
Yeah,
could and it does. I
yeah.
know there are those that
Mm,
does.
mm,
Not what I took when I went to university. I'm
yeah.
a biologist. I have a master's degree in biology. It's like, nah.
Yeah.
That 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 level of conversation, that level of going into a topic and really
It's
shining
also,
a light
yeah,
from many different points. It's like,
yeah.
no, it doesn't
And
really
actually
happen.
seeing the perspectives of like someone, as you said yourself, someone says something, and you're like, wow, I didn't think about this like
Yeah,
this.
yeah,
And that's interesting,
yeah.
because, and it's also shows like it's a certain entry into assumptions because we read through something, we assume, we create
Yes.
certain image in our head, and then in this specific environment you guys, like, you are set up on discussion, you want to have that discussion, you're open to that discussion, so like, you're happy to hear that someone brings their own view and you're open to it. And I think this, like this, we learn to be open to different discussions, not only in the safe environment, but also sometimes in less maybe friendly environment with people who are not yet there, with the level of their conversation and openness to different topics and yeah, different experiences.
Very much precisely that, because we can have totally opposite views or beliefs or feelings about a thing. And in these conversations, I learn how to deal with what arises in me and what I see in them. And,
Yeah,
so that when I go out into the world, outside of that kind of protected, safe space, I am better equipped. I'm resourced.
Mm,
I'm
mhm.
resourced to deal with when somebody comes and has a totally different understanding.
Yeah.
What if there's an accident? I bump into someone's car. They come out,
Screaming. Yeah.
screaming at me. I will then, hopefully, be able to manage that in a better way because I've
Mhm.
been in situations where, okay, here's somebody who has a completely different feeling and understanding
Yes.
of something than I, and I know I can be that,
Mhm.
which is kind of what
But
Andy Puddicombe, who's the creator of Headspace, the meditation
mhm, mhm,
app
mhm,
and company and
mhm.
stuff, he says that's kind of the point to meditation. It's not the 15 minutes that you meditate. It is the 23 hours and 45 minutes of the rest of the day
Yeah.
when you can use what you've learned, the resources you've gotten from the
Mm,
meditation.
mhm.
That's the point of it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
Kind
I
of the
was
same
about
here.
yeah, yeah, I was about to say that it loops me back to this what Joko said in one of his podcasts. I think the number 10 it was number 10 was the podcast. So one of his first ones is that if we are in touch with our emotions, we are able to detach. And this will help us to start seeing others' perspective. Like this will open us to experiencing how other people see the world, how they perceive it. And I think that's really, really cool. And by saying this, you're open to someone else's perspective. I'm not saying you have to take on that perspective, that you have to, like, I don't know, change completely the way you believe in things and change your systems and how you see the world. No, but just being open to have a conversation, not to just swing the someone to a different side of seeing the things, but just to have a conversation, just to indulge in this kind of taste for the mind. That's really, really nice to do. But you can do it, like, I think you can do it only if you control how you act, how you behave, how you like if you know what emotions, like sometimes what are your triggers, like if you understand those things, if you try to understand yourself, you will be able to take on others perspective and be open to new things, even though they are not really, I don't know, your how you say it, they are not your type of the things. Yeah. Mm,
And triggers for me are so interesting in and of themselves because it's
mm.
like they are like wormholes in the universe where a trigger is like a wormhole. If you actually go through it, you'll be in
Yeah.
a completely different spot. But if you go, oh, that's a trigger, that's a wormhole, I'm going to stay here. Yeah, you won't evolve. That will always remain a trigger for you then.
And when you say go through it, what do you mean by this exactly?
I mean, try to understand it, try to see it, be with it, do the therapy, do the
Mm,
conversation, do the whatever it is that, deal with whatever it is that has made this into a trigger so
mm,
that you can be in, in relation with that thing without being triggered. So
mhm.
actually doing the work in a
Yeah,
sense.
being
Um,
responsible for your
Precisely,
thoughts and ways of being.
rather than what is really happening in large parts of especially academia, I would say, and
Mm,
sort of university and college settings, is this aspect of this has to be a safe space where there are no triggers. It's like, fuck no. There needs to be more triggers because that's kind of the
yeah,
whole
this
point
shapes
to
us.
it.
Yeah.
Precisely, because it's like Otherwise, you could. How can you have a conversation in a university course around
Yeah.
racism if racism in and of itself is a word that triggers half of the
Yes.
students?
Yeah.
You could.
Precisely.
It's like, sir, you can't. Either you have to deal
Yeah.
with the fact that if you are triggered, you deal with that stuff
Mm.
and do that. And maybe you have to say, bye. I can't do
Mm.
this now. I have to deal
Mm.
with my triggered stuff
Mm.
first. Then I can come here and have a conversation
Yes.
about it, right?
Yeah.
That is taking ownership and
Yes.
responsibility
Yes.
for yourself.
Precisely.
But saying, you can't talk about this because I get triggered,
That's
sorry, I don't
it's
buy this.
really, yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And sometimes like you have like this online talks and everything, and they say, well, this talk can be a trigger. I was like, well, yeah, but I'm mindfully getting into that conversation or getting into that online video course or whatever it is because I want to understand things more.
Yeah.
Yes, like
Mm.
I I really like I feel like everything you do now, everything you say, it's a trigger. That you're not allowed to say things because it's a trigger. And sometimes I say things because I would like to talk about this. I would like to expand my perspective on certain things. And it's frustrating. Like you're right, like everything now is like it's a trigger. Let's not talk about this because it's a trigger. Well, I think we should talk about this to find out what's the reason for that trigger.
Yeah.
And
And
as we earlier said, like that was kind of I was reflecting on what we said about the book club, that I said that like it's a safe environment where you have a conversation. But I think, well, maybe in a way it's safe because you know the people and you know that no one has actually negative or bad intention by being there.
yeah.
They all want to discover things, and just this mindset makes you more open to have a conversation, even if their perspective is completely different to what is yours, even though their perspective may be a trigger, you know?
Yeah.
And yeah, and it's just not, I think, not always we know that other people may not have a bad uh, intentions. And always, but sometimes people don't control their emotions very well, neither. And that takes over, like it takes over them, over what they will say, how they will act. And then this unpleasant environment is created where discussion is much harder, talking about certain topics is much harder. But yeah, it's just, I don't know. I just was thinking about this like safe environment. What is the safe environment, and like why? Because I actually agree with you. It's good to be in unsafe environment because this allows you to face your fears or triggers, and I think you will be equipped better to deal with the things that future will bring to you by putting yourself in this uncomfortable environment.
Yeah.
But
Because that's when you
like,
can have the sticky
yeah,
conversations in a sense. But
yeah,
but
yeah.
you're again, it is a matter of how resourced am I? Um, because meditation, it's good for most people. But there are those who are so traumatized where sitting still, silent for an hour and just being with your thoughts can, you know, wreak havoc with them.
Mm,
Absolutely. Get them into psychosis and or panic attacks so because they are not resourced to deal
mhm,
with that. So for them, meditation is a really bad idea.
mhm.
Now they need something else, and maybe over time, they have dealt enough with their stuff so
Yeah.
that meditation can become one of their resources, right?
Mhm,
So I think it's that's kind of the same thing. If I've been raped, I can understand why being in a setting where it's spoken about or where it's shown on a TV screen or,
Mm-hmm.
that can trigger if I haven't worked with that, if I haven't healed my
Mm-hmm.
wound, if
Yeah.
I haven't dealt with my trauma, absolutely. But then it is on me to make sure that I don't come into those situations. We can't say that
Mm,
nobody can speak about rape, nobody can write about
yeah.
rape, nobody can make a movie about rape because there are
It's
people
a
who've
trigger. Yeah.
experienced it and it
Yeah.
will trigger them. And we can't
Yeah.
have that.
No.
But absolutely, I'm not forcing anybody to
Yeah.
sit and watch this movie about rape.
Yeah.
That's not the thing. But so it is again this matter of honoring ourselves and honoring others and like taking
Yeah.
responsibility for me. Um, which it's like you say, when we are so trained to blame others or blame something, someone or something, of course it's easy to just put a flag, a hand up and shout,
Mm.
I'm triggered, I'm
You
triggered,
trigger me with this. Yes.
and then use that as a way to shut something or someone up. And he's like,
Yeah.
no,
It's
I
your
don't think
responsibility
that's,
to deal with that. Yes.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And absolutely my responsibility. If you have one of those, it's like, and you say, I'd rather not talk about this. I don't
Mm.
have to keep pushing you.
No.
It's
No.
like, so
Exactly.
I have to honor you in that too, of
Yeah.
course, right? But that's kind of what this aspect of finding other people's perspectives on things. It
Mm.
kind of humbles, or at least it has made me more humble. I experience, maybe others disagree, right? But
Mm.
in just understanding that my point of view is my point of view, not
Yeah.
necessarily the truth, capital T, but
Yeah.
my point of view. You might have a completely other
Precisely.
point of view, and there's like
Precisely.
7 billion other people who might have 7 billion
Exactly.
other points of views.
Yeah. And I think you put out a good point that about honoring someone's boundaries, let's call it like this. I think it's important too, but as long as that person say like, look, i- I'm not comfortable talking about this right now. Maybe in the future we can discuss it, but I cannot do it right now. That's fine. Yes, but don't like cancel me, or don't make my um thought thoughts invalid because you had certain experience. I Well, in this situation when we talked about sexual assault, we like I'm lucky to not have that experience, and I can understand that to some degree. That, well, since I didn't go through it, luckily, I somehow try to understand that it is traumatizing, and everyone knows that it is traumatizing. Same as war is traumatizing. The things that happen there to people, the things that people see there, but it doesn't mean that, like, you know that I need to be aware of every single thing that I say. It's a trigger, like I don't know what's your past, like you can kindly ask me to not, like, let's not talk about this right now, please, because I don't feel comfortable with it. But how this other person may know that what I went through is a trigger for me? Yes, like they are not me, like,
No.
y- you know. So sometimes I think it's like we're living in the time where like it's a little bit annoying, frankly, to know that everything you say may be seen as a bad thing by certain society or people or group of people, and they will just scream at you, telling you, well, you do not have why do you say it? It's a trigger. It's like you cannot talk about this. Well, I think if we don't talk about this becomes more taboo and becomes a bigger problem. But if we talk about this, if you try to understand this, if we try to see others' perspective, then maybe we will do a little bit better in the world.
And I mean, you with red cheeks, you've sure
Yeah,
kind of dove
yeah,
right into that.
yeah, yeah, precisely. And there is
Right.
so much, like the more I try to talk to people who are like not somehow related to, let's say, adult industry or to sex work, often people are scared. And it's not that they don't want to talk about this, they just think that it's something bad. And I think it's because for so long time in the society we were like taught that intimacy is something we shouldn't be talking about. Sex is something we shouldn't be talking about. Not looking at it, not talking about it, but just to have kids, like have sex, to have kids, and that's it. It we weren't taught to talk about this in terms of feelings, in terms of how it shapes us, not talking about this. Mm,
And it is an aspect of this about boundaries that I think is interesting too, because I've just speaking for me honoring my boundaries is not, hasn't been my strong suit,
mm,
you know?
mm,
Again, saying yes when I'm a no, saying no when I'm a yes, that is me not honoring my
mm.
boundaries. And
Yeah.
that is my job. It is
Yes.
my job to honor my boundaries. It isn't your
Yes.
job to honor my
Yeah.
boundaries. It's my job. I'm the one who have to make you see that, hey, enough is enough, or please, more of this, right?
Yes.
It's like,
So ownership. Yeah. Ownership of
again, so we
this.
come back to this ownership aspect
Yeah.
of it all.
Yeah.
It's like I
Yeah.
am the only one who knows. I am the only one who knows what it's like
Yeah.
to be me. Where are my boundaries? What's okay and what's not okay with me? I'm the one
Yeah.
who knows that. And that comes the continuing conversation about consent, for instance. It's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that is
Yeah.
part of that.
Yes.
Being
Communication.
constantly in
Yes.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. Then we can understand each other. Then we can know, okay, like this person, like let's not talk about this because it just maybe at that moment better. But maybe in the future we can have a conversation about this. Yeah. Yeah.
So it does make for a more.
Mm.
It's like by opening these possibilities somehow, the possibility to have conversations about things that actually do trigger me
Mhm.
if I'm resourced
Mhm.
enough so that I can have them.
Mhm.
It's like it 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 turns multidimensional.
Mhm.
The possibilities that are there just go woof, exponentially multiplying because
Yeah.
I go from this narrow, we can only talk about this, to
Mm.
widening
Yeah.
it. And all of a sudden, you know, I can
Because
talk about all sorts of things that I had no clue that I wanted to talk
mm,
about. But now that we're doing it, it's kind of fun.
yeah, exactly. It's kind of freeing, I think, from my perspective at least, when I know that I was able to face my fears and now I can actually talk about this and having a sane approach toward those fears, having like broader approach to them, this makes me feel more free.
Yeah, that's a good place to be.
Mm.
Maybe that's a perfect place to end this. More
Today, yes.
freedom.
Exactly.
And you come to the freedom by taking ownership of me, my
Yeah,
experience of being me in
yeah,
the world, how I am
yeah.
in the world, how I express myself in the world, who I surround myself with. Is it
Yes.
people and things and environments that serve me or
Yeah.
not? It's like what's guiding me into a place where kind of where all feelings are allowed
Yes.
because they
Yes.
are a part of us. But like you say, if my feelings and my emotions are in control of me, I'm just like a tumbleweed. It's
Yes.
like I don't have any. But if I'm the one who's like, oh, here's this feeling, I can feel it. I don't have to react on it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That is freedom.
Yes.
That is freedom.
Precisely. Yeah. The ownership of the feelings and emotions. Yeah.
Yeah. Good. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. And I see you in a month, I think. More
Or
than
something
oh yeah,
like
we
that.
need to come up with one date.
We do. We do.
Precisely. Precisely. Well, have a lovely day and I talk to you soon.
Yeah, the same. See you
Thank you
around,
very much.
Izzy.
Ciao ciao.
Bye.
Ciao. Bye.